Today I'm going to show you an action thriller film from 2006, titled Crank. Be ready for spoilers ahead. The movie kicks off with a British hitman named Chev, who works for a Mexican Mafia crime syndicate, waking up inside his apartment, all dizzy and confused. He stumbles to a recording of a Mexican gangster named Verona injecting him with a drug. Verona says that he has approximately 1 hour until his heart slows down before stopping completely, and to stay alive, Chev has to keep his adrenaline up no matter how. Enraged by the video, Chev smashes the screen, sprints to his vehicle, and drives out of the parking lot. He tries to call his doctor, who is busy having a wild time with a bunch of beauties, so it is someone else who answers the call. Despite Chev's time constraints, the woman who receives his message displays complete indifference. Everyone he calls is lazy and unbothered, and the woman is entirely unenthusiastic when he reveals that he might be dying soon. The only thing that gives him satisfaction is when the friend agrees to help him find the Mexican cartel boss for him. After ending the call, Chev felt the world blurring again, and his heart started slowing down. He quickly shakes it off and steps on the accelerator, rushing through the traffic as he feels his heart speeding up and his vision clearing as the adrenaline starts pumping again. Soon, he finds himself driving to a rundown strip club, where he quickly draws a gun on a gangster's head and demands to know Verona's whereabouts. However, a large crowd of gangsters rushes in, each one pointing a gun at his head. Chev remains unfazed, his sole concern is locating Verona, and he harbors no fear even if his brain is blown up. Unfortunately, the gangster doesn't know where he is either. Rather, he harbors a personal grudge against Verona. As the situation escalates, Chev's adrenaline slowly leaves his body, and his chest starts feeling suffocated again. He buys a packet of sniff powder from the gangster and inhales all the stuff, but it does nothing to alleviate his symptoms. Chev violently headbutts the nearest gangster and instigates a fight. The fight sweeps the entire club, but Chev escapes with his vehicle and speeds up on the road. He gets a call from Verona, threatening to harm his girlfriend. At the same moment, cops start chasing after him because of his speeding. Chev hangs up on Verona to pick up his doctor's call but crashes the car into a mall and starts driving inside as he talks to the doctor, who describes the drug as a Chinese adrenaline inhibitor that might not have a cure. The only way to stay alive is to keep moving and keep the adrenaline pumping. Chev is doing just that by crashing his car against the escalator and running away from the police. He runs out to find a cab by the side of the road and throws out the other passengers before ordering the driver to start moving. The excitement starts wearing off again, so he yells at the driver to crank up the music as he shakes and bangs his head for the adrenaline. The taxi stops at a grocery store where Chev briskly walks inside and slams the cashier on the floor before pulling out a gun to threaten him. He then messily stuffs as many cans of drinks as he can inside a plastic bag and heads out to Beverly Hills to find his boss Carlito. Carlito is in the midst of throwing an extravagant pool party with lots of beauties dancing and many armed men patrolling the penthouse. Chev jumps into the pool after Carlito to ask about Verona and the Chinese drug. Seeing that Carlito is calm upon hearing what Verona did to him, Chev realizes that Verona and he are conspiring together. Recently, Chev killed a high-profile target named Don Kim under Carlito's order, and now Carlito wants Chev to take the heat of the aftermath. Chev is full of rage, but he knows better. If he starts fighting, he will be easily outnumbered, so he simply stomps out of the mansion. He goes back to the taxi, but the cab driver refuses to let him inside the car with clothes that are dripping wet. However, Chev just throws out the driver and takes the car for himself. As he is driving, he gets a call from the doctor who advises him to get some epinephrine from a hospital to inject into himself in hopes that it might stabilize his condition. He also cautions him against overdosing, advising him to use only a small amount. Just as he ends the call with the doctor, his phone rings again. It is his friend calling to disclose that he has spotted Verona's brother entering a restaurant alone. Chev rushes to the place and walks straight into the restaurant without trying to be sneaky. Verona's brother is quick to spot him and goes after him with a gun. He searches through the kitchen but finds nothing and goes out the back door when suddenly Chev appears with a butcher's knife. In one swift move, Chev slices the brother's hand that was holding the gun, and they both begin to scuffle. Right when Chev starts being overpowered, his friend comes up to help and distracts Verona's brother. Chev takes this opportunity to pick up the severed hand that is still holding the gun and shoot him with it. He then pulls out a phone from the dead body and dials Verona's number. Verona, who is merely fooling around with a beauty, is shaken up by the call because Chev calling him from his brother's phone can only mean that he has killed him. Verona shouts and rages while Chev finds his misery quite delightful. Satisfied, he heads to a nearby hospital to get a shot of epinephrine, but the pharmacist strongly refuses and steps out to call the police. While the pharmacist is on the phone, Chev grabs epinephrine containing nasal sprays and runs out of the pharmacy. As a result of the pharmacist's call, the police are hot on his heels and chase him around the hospital. Chev manages to hide inside a patient's room and swiftly discards his clothes to wear a hospital gown. Nevertheless, the police easily recognize him and start a chase. As they run through the hospital, Chev spots a bunch of doctors ushering a patient in their cart full of medical supplies. He figures they might have some epinephrine in the cart and starts running along with them. Subsequently, he pulls a gun on a young doctor and demands some epinephrine, but there are many drawers on the cart, causing the young doctor to fumble around in panic. With them running and the police chasing, the doctors stumble and fall in front of an elevator. While yelling for epinephrine, Chev fires 2 warning shots at the police officers to stop them from coming close. The young doctor finally manages to find some, but Chev's heart is rapidly slowing down, and he has no time to measure the drug and inject a shot. He orders the doctor to shock him with a defibrillator, but after a brief hesitation, the doctor takes the device and uses it on Chev. The electric shock flings him inside the elevator. This gives him a moment to take the epinephrine and escape from the police officers. He takes out a syringe and injects the whole thing into his arm. Only then does he realize that his doctor had told him to take only a small dose. Running completely on the drug and high, he leaps over vehicles and darts through parks and continues to run without any indication to stop. While running, he gets a call from his doctor, who finds that he has overdosed. He accurately guesses all the symptoms that Chev is experiencing and speaks grimly because in the next 30 minutes, his death is certain. Still high on the drug, Chev only rushes forward single-mindedly. He steals a police bike and recklessly drives along the road before crashing tables. He momentarily loses consciousness from the accident, but his phone's ringtone wakes him up. It's his girlfriend, Eve, calling him because she is worried, but she only gets more nervous as he explains a bit of the situation. Eve refuses to believe him at first, so he tells her to wait where she is and picks up the bike again to drive to her place. He wants to quickly get Eve out before Verona and his men find her, but she keeps stalling. In the end, he manages to get her out of her apartment while secretly fighting off Verona's men out of her sight. He takes her to a restaurant and explains everything. He also reveals that he didn't actually kill Don Kim. He only asked him to stay low and disappear for 48 hours. Chev did so because he wanted to quit this lifestyle for her. But Eve doesn't believe his words and thinks it is a silly farce so that he could break up with her. Chev chases after her when she angrily storms out of the restaurant. However, he begins to experience dizziness once more as the adrenaline wears off, prompting him to seize Eve, imploring her to engage in sexual intercourse right then. She initially resists but gets into the mood and performs in the middle of an excited crowd. Just as things are getting heated, Chev gets a call from his friend saying that he has found Verona. He quickly leaves and abandons Eve in the middle of the public scene while she screams at him. He gets in a cab, and the driver gives him a vial of a drug that calms his mind for the first time since being poisoned with a Chinese drug. Verona is nowhere in sight when he arrives at Don Kim's shirt factory, but Carlito's men are encircling the property. They tell Chev that their boss wants him dead because he has been running around wreaking havoc around the city, and it is detrimental to the syndicate. They urge him to retreat and cease his pursuit of Verona, as they will handle that issue. But Chev doesn't agree, and a brutal gunfight breaks out in the factory. In the midst of flying bullets, Chev spots Eve, who has followed him there. He quickly grabs her and escapes out of the building while fending off the gangsters. They speed away with the gangsters hot on their trails. In the midst of bullets and crashing cars, Chev handles the steering wheel while Eve takes care of his gear stick to keep his adrenaline pumping. After escaping their pursuers, they pull over at the store, where Chev applies acupuncture on his leg because he has lost all sensations in the limb. Right then he gets a call from his doctor asking if he could come to his place, so the both of them drive to the doctor. The doctor manages to stabilize his condition and fix his leg, but the effects are only temporary. Chev would soon fall into a coma and then lose his life. The doctor offers to give him a drug that would let him die with a beautiful dream, but Chev doesn't want a dream, he just wants 1 hour. After the doctor manages to fulfill his request, he gives Verona a call. He proposes to meet up for an exchange. Verona is boiling with rage but agrees. Chev is drugged out of his mind, hallucinating sounds and faces while walking around with a makeshift ephedrine pump injected into his body. Chev is escorted to Verona, who is waiting for him along with Carlito. Carlito's men take away both his gun and the ephedrine pump, but Chev maintains his composure and doesn't miss the chance to taunt Verona. Carlito secretly extracts a syringe containing the same Chinese drug that previously poisoned Chev. His plan is to inject him again to kill him. But before he can get any further, Don Kim and his men appear behind Chev. The 2 crime bosses and their men get into a showdown with guns and grenades. Hearing the sounds of gunshots, the SWAT team and heavily armed officials swarm into the building to catch the criminals. Amidst the chaos, Verona, whose fingers were blasted off, manages to get a hold of the syringe and runs away from Chev. Carlito is also running away to the roof of the hotel where a helicopter is waiting for him. But before he could fly away, Chev catches up to him and prepares to shoot. Suddenly, Verona pops up from behind him and stabs him with a Chinese drug, and he instantly falls to the ground. Verona also puts some bullets through Carlito's chest before getting inside the helicopter. Just as the helicopter begins to take off, Chev regains consciousness and clings to the helicopter and grabs Verona. Hanging high above the clouds, the 2 men struggle. In the process of trying to push each other out of the helicopter, they both fall out. They don't stop fighting even in mid-air, and Chev at last manages to crush Verona's throat. Verona is dead, but Chev is still free falling, and there is no way to save himself. So, he calls his girlfriend, but the call directly goes to voicemail. He apologizes for letting her down, and after a few more sweet words, he closes his eyes to accept his fate. Chev's body hits a car and bounces off onto the road. He is bloody and unmoving, but his nostrils flare and his eye twitches and adrenaline is still flowing fast inside his body. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this.